Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's Security Tapes. This is our first episode, and we're pleased to be joined today by Nasser Arif, who has joined us from the London Northwest Healthcare NHS Trust. So, just really to touch on what this whole podcast series is about, it really is about introducing different people from the security community to everybody else, and so we can all start communicating and, if you like, build a sort of unofficial network where there are people that we know within the industry from different parts of the industry, and we can start reaching out to each other and sharing advice and knowledge. So without much further ado, I think we'll hand over to Nasser. If you would like to give us an introduction, Nasser, about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So happy to be here. I am Nasser Arif, and I am currently, my day job is cybersecurity manager at London Northwest NHS Trust and more recently Hillingdon Hospital Foundation Trust as well. So two trusts in Northwest London, which is a lot of fun. I look after a lot of the day-to-day operations. So, looking after incidents, the day-to-day management of my team, implementing projects, technical projects and non-technical, making sure we're staying compliant, cyber awareness, a lot of that recently, which is actually my favorite part of the job. So yeah, all different parts of cyber rolled into one. Happy to
Superb.
be here.
Yeah, thanks for that overview. And Adam, would you like to tell us why you've joined us from Trethtec today?
So very briefly, I'm a pen tester and hacker. I've been doing it about 10 years now, and I'm the director and founder of Trethtec. And we specialize very much in continuous security testing. And this is one of our little projects we've been working on together.
Superb. And I'm Vin Marc Maguire, and my job really is just to kind of hold the podcast together if I can. I've been in security for quite a while, and the key reason why we're doing this at Trethtec is, as I say, really we've found when it comes to knowing what to do about security, it's the people who have been down the path or are going down the path. And I'm certain that by communicating as a community, we'll share ideas and approaches that are going to help everybody. So Nasser, tell us, what is it that got you into security? What sort of drove you down the path?
So I've been in cyber the industry for around I think 5 years now. So I started at the beginning of 2020, just before the first wave of the COVID pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for me to remember when I started because I associate it with that time, unfortunately. So I basically my background is not IT. So traditionally my education was in aeronautical engineering, nothing to do with IT, but a lot of the transferable skills I gained there. So, the problem solving, attention to detail, all of those analytic abilities, all of that is something that I feel is, part of my core strength. And cyber is something that utilizes those core strengths a lot. And the way I found that out was while working as an IT engineer at my hospital where I am at the moment, where I work at the moment, I kind of started to find a lot of different cyber risks, which I felt no one was really tackling or taking seriously at the time. I was working as a field engineer, so I was doing my tickets, I was getting through my day, but then I dedicate some of my day to just try and fix things,
Yep.
without, anyone really paying too much attention to it. I'd be like, okay, look, why are these computers also missing patches? It's not right. And it just started to trigger this curiosity in me to understand why things weren't working the way they were meant to. And that dedication to spending, a few hours every day alongside my day job just to fix little things on computers I was working on anyway, it just started to get my interest in cyber. I was like, you know what, there's so much to this. This is fascinating. If this doesn't work, this can happen. If this doesn't work, this exploit can happen. And I started reading more into it, thinking, you know, this is very similar to aeronautical engineering in some ways. Yeah, we're not looking at planes anymore, but it's the same, curiosity and the same desire to learn I had back in university, which started to come back,
Yep.
in me. And I was like, hold on, you know, I'm not like Adam. I'm not a hacker. How am I supposed to work in cybersecurity? I don't know anything. I've barely worked in IT for like it's been like 8 months, and there's no way in hell I could work in cybersecurity. But it's good to be interested in it. And then we had a new cybersecurity manager start, and he spotted me doing some of these things. And he said to me, why don't you come and work for me 2 days a week? Because I was on what the NHS called bank staff, which is temporary staffing. So
Yeah.
you work on an hourly basis. You work wherever you're needed within the department. And he goes, do 2 days in cyber. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know anything about cyber. And he goes, well, you're doing it. You just don't realize you're doing it. You're kind of taking an interest in it. And that's the main thing. I was like, okay, if you say so, I mean, he was someone I really looked up to. I still do. And, if he's saying to me, I've got potential in cyber, surely he must see something I'm not, because I didn't think I'd be able to survive in cybersecurity. I was like, it's too hard, right? So I started working for him for a little bit, and just from there, that transitioned to me applying for a permanent role in the cybersecurity team. And here we are now, a couple of years later, I'm now the cybersecurity manager in the same organization. So the role he was when he started, and he told me at the time, he goes, in a couple of years, you can be in my role. And I was like, come on, you're just being nice. You want me to do work. That's why you're being friendly to me. You're just trying to. And he goes, no, no, no. He goes, there's something in you I see myself. And he goes, you might not see it yet, but it's gonna happen. And when it does, yeah, you'll let me know. You were right. And I did let him know as soon as I got my current role, which I've been in a management position for 2 years now. I let him know. I said, you know what? You were spot on, because he kind of predicted where my career would go. And yeah, I owe him a lot, because he gave me that initial opportunity where a lot of others wouldn't have. And now in my position, I'm trying to do the same thing, and give back and pass it down and bring new people in, like I was brought in, people who might not even feel they can work in cyber, but they have these unique strengths here, which would make them invaluable in the industry. So yeah, that's how I kind of got into cyber. And yeah, I'm going to stay in cyber because I love the industry.
Good, good. And just out of interest, what advice would you give to anybody who's not yet in the sector, even if they're not in IT? What advice would you give to them if they were thinking of joining the sector?
I would say, go for it. Don't let the perception of cyber hold you back. So you might think cyber is, for example, just a highly technical field where you have to be an expert coder, software engineer, whatever it is. That's not the case. Cyber has so many different parts to it, whether it's a defensive side, the information security side. There's so much to it, and you won't know what you're good at unless you put yourself out there and try. So I normally recommend, when people ask me at my organization, how do I get into cyber? I give them, very simple, it's a couple of free courses they can do, and just say, well, why don't you try this? See if you enjoy it. If you genuinely are enjoying learning with this material and you want to know more, cyber might actually be a career for you. If you don't enjoy learning anything and you want to go into a career where everything stays the same all the time, cyber might not be it. But yeah, if you have that desire to learn, you have those core strengths in your field, wherever you are. Like, you can be, I know people who work in the hospital Costa, where I frequent many times in, as you know. If you see how they work under pressure, right? Like during a rush hour time in a barista, you're taking different orders. You're dealing with some rude customers, not me, of course. You're dealing with a lot of pressure, and they're coping. Now, wouldn't that be a really good core strength to have in cybersecurity? That ability to work under pressure, multitask. And people have this in them, but they just haven't had this cyber layer applied to it yet. That's how I see it. Where when I was working in IT as an engineer, field engineer, yeah, I was, good at computers and everything. I've always been a bit of a geek, so it came natural to me, right? But that cyber layer, I just hadn't been exposed to it. Like, imagine, someone looked at me and said, you don't have any cyber background, you haven't got any qualifications, we don't want you in the team. Everything I've done in cyber up until now wouldn't have happened. And the thought of that is crazy, just because I didn't fit the traditional mold originally, so that's what motivates me day to day. Is I tell people, don't let anything put you off. You go for it. And you might bump into that one person who takes a chance on you, and it's for you then to show why it is you want to be in the industry. The passion for something, I feel, is worth a lot more than any certification or qualification. I think if once you've got that passion, everything else can come and it'll be easier. So that's the advice I'd give, is go for it.
Yeah, I definitely echo that, and very, very
Mm,
wise words. And what's interesting, will come out as we go through the different episodes,
mm,
is I do feel that people outside the sector maybe feel the sector's slightly ring fenced and only for
yeah,
certain people.
yeah.
But what I hear from everybody in the sector is, come and join us, and
Mm,
what fascinates me, it's one thing looking at somebody's LinkedIn profile,
yeah.
very flat, and you sort of get an idea, oh, this person's done some things. But as you know, yourself obviously included,
Mm,
and the other people we've been speaking to, it's fascinating some of the different backgrounds people have come from to end up in security. Because what again will definitely come
mm,
out is security. It just so happens what we're doing involves the digital and information side. Security,
yeah,
security, security, and always has been, even
yeah,
before computers,
yeah.
and that'll come out a lot. So I suppose that brings us nicely to today's show title, if you like. And
Hmm.
and just for anybody watching, what we're doing is, we're asking guests to, obviously, a range of topics and subjects, but just to pick areas they'd like to talk about. And NASA wanted to talk about people, culture,
Hmm.
neurodiversity, and mental health in our security world. So obviously, quite a few different areas, all kind of connected.
Mm,
Do you want to tell us a bit about your thoughts on why you kind
yeah,
of chose those areas, NASA, and why it's important to you?
yeah, of course. So, over my career, over the last couple of years especially, I've kind of fallen in love with the human side of cybersecurity a lot more. Although I am, a techie by background, it's something that has fascinated me beyond anything else. And there's
Yeah,
so many different parts to it. Like you said, the people, the culture, the neurodiversity side. And the reason that kind of happened is a couple of years ago. So before I was in a management position where I could implement more change, I got to the point where I was starting to get burnt out. You know, Believe it or not, cyber was something I wanted to get away from at one point. So the lowest point I reached was, okay, you know what? I've had enough. We're seeing the same issues every day. Nothing's changing. No one really sees us. I feel invisible as cybersecurity in my organization. No one knows who I am. Uh, I've just, saved the organization from something, and no one cares. That was the feeling I was getting.
mm,
And whether or not that was the truth, I can't say. It's more you feel how you feel at the time. Likely it wasn't the truth at all, but that's just how I felt. And I started to think, okay, what else can I do here? This can't be the rest of my life, just dealing with issue after issue after issue. Surely there's more to cyber. That
yeah,
I'd started to lose that initial spark and passion I first had when I was hired. And that's what got me really worried. I was like, okay, look, this is now affecting my well-being. I've been sucked into this very negative perception of cyber where everything's bad. I'm not seeing the good here anymore, right? And it started to have an impact on my mental health. And I was applying for jobs inside my organization in other departments just to get away from cyber.
mm,
I can't believe this is the same. Like, I can't believe I'm the same person now.
yeah,
I really can't. Like,
yeah,
as much as I love cybersecurity now, that point was where I was ready to leave. And I kind of found that the reason, that's happening for me personally was I wasn't seeing the bigger picture of where cybersecurity sits in the organization. I was thinking of cyber as a self-contained unit within like IT. Like with this is cyber, this is what we're doing. We're just fixing this, we're fixing this vulnerability, exploit, whatever it is, incident. I wasn't seeing where we fit in at all. So I kind of put myself out there in my organization. I thought, you know what? I need to fix myself here. I need to tackle these problems myself. No one can, change my perception the way I can, right? And I put myself out there. I, spread myself around the organization, joined different networks, started networking with people just to learn about what the organization does. And what I actually found was, I found a different take on cyber to what I had before. I realized what it is I'm protecting. So, visiting our A&E department, for example,
yeah,
it showed me who I'm protecting. The staff members there, they're under so much stress, life and death situations every day, and they don't even complain. They just, carry on with their work as if it's a normal day in the office. They've saved someone's life, they've made a family happy, and I'm there complaining about phishing. I'm thinking, you know what? I think I'm being a little bit spoiled here. I'm actually in a privileged position where I can sit there and help people without really, being in those really tough situations. Like nothing comes close to those life and death situations that a lot of our clinicians are facing in the NHS.
mhm,
Nothing. Like no matter how stressful cyber can be, I can guarantee that is so much more stressful. You're literally holding someone's life in your hands. So learning about, different perspectives, and that kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone a lot more. And I realized there's a bigger picture here. There's more I'm doing. What I'm doing is actually making a difference. But then the second part came where I thought, okay, why are we then still seeing the same behaviors? I've understood where the pressures are, but that means we need to change the culture a little bit. And cyber, we need to put ourselves out there. So after I got my management position, I thought, okay, now's the time. I can make these changes. Changes that I haven't seen. Let me do them myself. Why not? And I started to teach people more. So I started to pass on the knowledge I had in cyber to our staff members through lunch and learns, face-to-face training, just to build that relationship with these different departments and show them that cyber actually has a face. And it's not just people who block Facebook. We're so much more than that. It's a very creative field as well. What we're doing is not just for the organization. I wanted to make cyber, and I'm still working on this journey, more than just, that team in the workplace. It's cyber, the knowledge you gain sits with you in your personal life as well. And you can improve your well-being, improve your mental health. No one likes being scammed. The feeling of that is terrible. So why aren't we teaching our staff members how to stop this stuff? Let's not just focus on work cybersecurity. Let's just focus on cybersecurity as a whole. So I've started to do a lot more of that recently. And that's where the cultural side, I've kind of realized without planning for this, I'm starting to change the cyber culture in the organization where they know who the cyber team is now. They can approach me in the corridors. I've had doctors talk to me about risks that they're worried about openly. I've had meetings with staff members in Costa, naturally, in our coffee shops, just to have that informal chat about what is cybersecurity can do for them and how we can help them. We've launched like a cyber network as well. I'm getting people to join in. No commitment on their side. They can just, access to Teams channels, access to our intranet, and just read and get resources from me. If they want to reach out and find out more, they know who I am and they know who my team is now. They can. So it's a fascinating topic. And then the neurodiversity side is another thing. So, I do consider myself neurodiverse. I'm not diagnosed or anything, but I have a pretty strong indication I am. And I started to realize a lot of people in cybersecurity world are neurodiverse, but we're just not talking about it. We're not talking about the benefits this brings. So with NHS England, I've been doing some work to kind of raise more awareness across the UK about this. And what we realized is, the strengths that we have being neurodiverse individuals, whether it's attention to detail, problem solving, the analytical ability, all of this are things that, we need to highlight a lot more. And all of these different topics, so the neurodiversity side, the culture side, the awareness, all of this comes together and it changes the perception of cybersecurity, which is what the core message needs to be. Cyber is not a negative thing. Cybersecurity can be very positive. I've met some lovely people in the cybersecurity industry, especially recently over the last couple of years. It's changed my life, and I've realized we're all in it together, really, right? And there's like a family culture we have being cyber professionals, which isn't really emphasized as much as it should. I think there's a lot of people who want to do really good in the world, and they're not even worried about how much money they're getting, what job. There's a core mission there we all seem to have, and it's to help people in our own way, whether it's through digital means, whether it's through in person. So this is where all this interest came in, and I've kind of changed as a person because of this. I've realized cyber is so much more than just phishing emails, right? And blocked websites. So I hope that answers the question. I know I went into different tangents.
No. That's
something
really
I'm
good.
quite passionate about.
Yeah, no, it's really good and a very interesting intake. I mean, would you be able to say where you've sort of got strong examples of how changing that culture is sort of given better security outcomes? Have you got specific examples, perhaps maybe where because of the way you've changed how you want the department perceived, and it is obviously changing how it is perceived, as it had positive effects?
Yeah, so we were invited as a cybersecurity team to take part in our staff wellbeing festivals. Now, these wellbeing festivals are usually reserved for other departments. You would never catch cybersecurity here normally, traditionally, or IT in general. It'd be more like the different networks. So you'd have the actual wellbeing team there. You'd have our transformation teams there. You'd have it's a very positive and lovely atmosphere these well-being festivals have. So traditionally, cyber wouldn't be part of this. However, because of the change of perception within the organization, we're now a crucial part of those well-being festivals. I've managed to secure a table for the second year in a row now. So that means they actually wanted us back, which is which is perfect. And there, we have like mini games, we give out gifts, we have quizzes, and it's a very different cyber to what people might expect in the NHS. And I'm very proud of that because it just shows the organization as a whole is changing their perception. I was invited to present at our team brief for our board members. There's different networking events we're invited to represent the trust. So all these things are happening, which kind of shows, okay, people are picking up on this. There's a cultural change going on. NHS England had noticed this as well. So I did a presentation on our cyber network for this as well, and how I've changed the culture without spending too much money. It didn't cost anything to change the culture. All it takes is effort and just passion, nothing else. Everything else falls into line naturally. So yeah, there have been examples. In terms of a technical example, we've had more people willing to report phishing, more people willing to report incidents without fear of them, being blamed for anything. Because one thing I pride myself on is to not have a blame culture in cyber. I'm not a fan of the term when people say humans are the weakest link. I think you have to really question how much you've done as a cyber professional to educate them first. Like it's very easy to blame people, but we've all done it. I've clicked on phishing links so many times. It happens. There's a reason that some of them are so good, because they're designed to trick you. So imagine blaming someone for being manipulated by someone else. It's terrible. It's like victim shaming, and we need to get away from that. So yeah, and that's a core thing which has changed, where people now, they don't feel afraid to say, yeah, what, hands up, I did something. I realized afterwards it was wrong. How do we fix it? I'd rather they do that as staff members than hide it and hope that our systems pick it up. I'd rather hear it firsthand, because you hear the full story, you hear exactly what's happened, and you can then re-educate, and sometimes you learn about behaviors staff members are doing which are dangerous, but they don't realize they're dangerous. And then that informs my training as well. So I can then go and train them on why those behaviors need to change. So it's a two-way street. Instead of cyber being, no, don't do this, don't do this. It's more, okay, what are you doing and how can we help you improve that? So I've definitely seen that day to day. It's made a huge difference to my day to day as well.
I mean, have you feel, or is it kind of frustrating at times, you'd like to do more, or do you feel the mechanism is there for you to push this out broadly?
So traditionally the mechanisms aren't always there for you to push out broadly, but me being me, that doesn't stop me, right? So I found my own way to push out broadly. So through our cyber network, through NHS England, they've been big supporters of mine, and very helpful actually. So they're actually helping me take my word and spread it as much as we can. So I've been invited to come and talk to their regional leads in London in July, just to say what it is I've been doing, and just share my story in the same way I'm doing with you guys today. And for me, that means a lot, because people really underestimate the impact it has from a personal point of view. This is the same guy who a couple of years ago, before I joined IT, I was struggling to find work. And all of a sudden, I've gone from someone who volunteered in my hospital to being invited to come and talk at these different places. And I can't believe it, to be honest. And you think, why me? But then, people are like, just be yourself, just talk about your story, and that's all you need to do. Like I'm doing today. It's just what I'm doing. It's not like, I don't see it as me going like extra mile or anything. It's fun. I love it when someone says they've learned something from me. Like it's one of the most satisfying things ever. Like I don't want anything from them. It's just, they've gone, and like even one of my training sessions, someone took their phone out and they started enabling MFA everywhere. They go, let me just do this. I didn't know this existed. They didn't realize, like on LinkedIn, sometimes if you don't hide your email address, it can be visible to your connections. And someone said, yeah, but I've got so many connections. I don't really want them all to know my email address. I'm like, yeah, you might want to change that. So she changed it on the training session. I saw on camera on the phone. She goes, okay, it's done. Little things like that, right? You can't really measure that, but it's like you've had an impact on someone. And across the board, I don't know if we have had those impacts, but I know they're there. And sometimes I hear about it like 6 months down the line when someone said, "Oh, I really enjoyed your mobile security lunch and learn." And I'm like, which one was that? I'm trying to remember. When did I do? So it's been like 8, 9 months, but they remembered it. And I didn't even realize they were taking on that. So yeah, NHS is, because of the way we are as different NHS organizations and trusts, we are working very close together nowadays. So it has been difficult sometimes to get the message spread, because you have to do it in a way where you understand and appreciate the other cultures. Because although we're the NHS, each organization has its own culture. So you have to understand how that culture works before you try to change anything. Some trusts are already in a really good place with cyber culture, and some still have a lot of work to do. It doesn't mean what they're doing is bad. It just means, they might not have the resource or the support to make those improvements the same way I did. So where I can, I kind of spread the word everywhere. Like, why don't you try this? Try this. It's free. It doesn't cost anything to make a Teams channel, whatever it is. You give little tips to each other, and you learn from each other as well. So that's one thing that makes me quite proud to be in the NHS. We have a very close-knit cyber community who helps each other. Anytime you need support, everyone's there for you. And it's really, really nice to see that. To be honest, we've seen that across the cyber industry as a whole anyway, where people do support each other, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely everything you've said there, again, music to my ears, and I'm sure Adam agrees. It's like the community spirit in our industry is somewhat different, and I
Yeah.
think sometimes people forget who the bad guy is, and there is this
Yeah.
approach from outside. The security teams, that almost like the security team's the head teacher there to prevent and disable you from doing things, and a great example with the recent M&S attack. What we've seen there is a lot of finger pointing from certain areas within the sector. But what's been really heartening has been that professionals who are day-to-day involved in security coming out in support of the M&S team and reminding everybody, guess what? They're not the bad people. They're trying to stop the bad people. The bad people are the ones who actually compromise their systems. And I think that spirit is it's magical that you feel that way, and it is something I think that's real within the security community. I mean, if you could give advice to people that are perhaps not as far down the journey as you are in terms of maturity of what you're doing, what advice would you give to them? Say they're sat there today, they might have a team, they might be just alone responsible for their security in their organization. Where do you start? What would you say they should start doing it the Nasser way, as it were?
So from a mindset point of view, it would be to start small. Like when I started making changes, I still haven't completed what I want to do. It's an ongoing journey, but you start with what you have already. So, for example, I saw that we didn't have a cybersecurity intranet page. Sounds simple, right? And you're thinking, why don't we have a website? So I just, I made one. I worked with our comms team. I got in touch with them. I had a good relationship with them anyway. Through that journey of self-discovery I had before, where I was reaching out to other departments, I built that relationship there. And I realized I found out what they do. Like, they're specialists in this naturally. This is what they do day to day, is, specialize in communication. So why am I not learning from my peers here and understanding how I can do this better? So that's where I would start. Start very small, manageable areas. There's no point, going huge and trying everything at once. You're just gonna, either burn out or realize that you can't hit everything at once. You need to start very small and just make small steps, consistent steps, and don't have huge expectations initially. So when I put out user comms or anything like that, I don't expect everyone to be replying to me saying, "Oh, this is perfect, I'm going to do this." It's going to take time. You build on that knowledge. You keep feeding people that knowledge. You train them, and slowly you'll start to spot people who are genuinely interested in cyber. Now, again, this works in other ways as well. So although you're trying to change the culture, you might find your next recruit that way for your team. There's hidden talent you won't see unless you put yourself out there. So that's what I would do first. Put yourself out there and just build those relationships with departments. Once you build those relationships, only then you'll understand what their cyber challenges are and why their behaviors are the way they are. For example, like a finance department, if you have one in your organization, go and talk to the CFO and just find out day to day how those teams operate. And you'll start to see where in their workflow the cyber risks are. That's where your skill set is as a cyber professional. And then you can then, help them on that. You can say, by the way, if you do it this way, it's a little bit safer. Little things. And they'll be like, oh, okay, cool, fair enough. And they'll do it. And those small little behaviors, eventually, when you look back after a year, you realize there's been some big changes made, which looked very insignificant and small at the time. But put together, it's a big change. So yeah, start small. It's the best way.
Superb. Yep, all good. And a bit more of a broader question. What do you think, from your perspective, is the biggest challenge facing the sector at the moment? What's the biggest challenge?
Yeah. So in the NHS, what you'll often hear is in any industry, I think you'll hear, okay, ransomware is the biggest threat. It can take out organizations. In the NHS, availability is key. We can't have our services go down. So of course, ransomware is a big threat. But ransomware, for the most part, is contained to the enterprise, contained to the organization. I kind of feel, especially with recent incidents that have happened in the media, social engineering, phishing, human manipulation, as I call it, that is actually an even bigger threat, because that's often the entry point. And we're focusing on the ransomware side a lot, where something bad's already happened. For that to launch and take place, it's already happened. We missed that first stage. We didn't catch it. It's got to the ransomware stage. Whereas the social engineering side, what we're seeing, especially with service desks being manipulated in the private sector to get passwords reset, all sorts of incidents have happened because of these type of phishing incidents. This actually, it follows humans home. So I say human as if I'm AI or something, right? Yeah, I am a person. So it follows us home. So 9 to 5 in your workday, or whatever hours you work, you have a cyber team looking out for you. You have alerts coming in. Your computers are managed. But then what happens when you go home? The threat doesn't stop. It's following you. You have those scams coming to your phones. You have your scams coming to your emails, your personal email, social media scams. It never stops. It's 24 hours, that threat. And that, to me, is the most important threat we need to capture, because once we start to educate and change behaviors related to that, you make yourself immune from a lot of the entry points that attackers are often using. So I do think a lot more focus needs to be on that side, the human side again, where people are being manipulated. And we've all had scammers, talk to us. We've probably all had phone calls. We've had text messages. We know what this feels like. And we work in cybersecurity. We might be able to spot these signs, but for an untrained eye, it's so easy to fall victim to this.
Yeah.
It's easier than, launching ransomware. So why isn't the same amount of focus on there? So from my opinion, I do feel that's the biggest threat at the moment to the sector as a whole, especially healthcare.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think certainly the thing that always never ceases to amaze me is how easy it is to get caught out as well by social engineering.
Yeah.
And similarly to yourself, I'm nowhere near as skilled as Adam when it comes to things like testing. I know the tools, but I can't really run them. But in my past, I do think a bit like a threat actor sometimes. I've got a bit of a weird thought process sometimes about things, and that's how I see threat actors. Is they look at systems and they just think, how can I compromise that system? And it's interesting because I've done quite a lot of work in my time with the regional organised crime units that are part of the police who work with the NCSC. And we did a number of free seminars where the police had come out and talked to different companies for us, and we'd met that happen. And what we're interested in is the way the police dealt with awareness was not talk about the business and bad guys might come and do ransomware at your business. They talked about home life and talked about digital footprints. And Facebook always springs to mind. Personally, I'm not a Facebook person, but I know a lot of my friends utilize Facebook for different communication means and other social media. And I was sort of saying to somebody recently, if I wanted to attack them, the way I'd do it is I'd find them on LinkedIn, I'd cross-reference it to Facebook, and if they'd been to Wales that weekend,
Yeah.
they'd no doubt tell me on Facebook that they had, and
Yeah.
I'd just construct an email from the local head loo, the Welsh police, saying you've been caught speeding. Click here for your proof of evidence, the photograph, and I think that kind of thing, just because it's more
Yeah.
tailored, kind of works. And I think
It
that's the thing
works.
people are least aware of is the fact
Yeah.
that threat actors, they are quite devious, and it's not all a FedEx email anymore. It's
No.
certainly not that. It's
No.
much more complicated. I mean, Adam, you've done some interesting social engineering pieces. Some of my favorite stories come from you. Would you like to just give us just a bit of an insight into some of the social engineering work you've done? Sorry to put you on the spot, but it is one of my favorite stories.
No, which story do you have in mind? I know I've got
Nighthawk.
so many.
I like the nighttime breaking one.
Oh, the Nighthawk one.
Yeah.
So the jumping over the fences. Well, so that was a breaking into a couple of manufacturing facilities that they had at a couple of different sites, and we did a night operation, then we did a day operation at the same time. With the night one, we hopped over one of their fences, and we were hanging around in the smoking area, chatting to all their factory workers, and no one thinks that anything's amiss. I've just got my high vis jacket on, which I think all the testers will recognise. But doors are open all over the premises. It's easy to wander around the facility. And then I think, let's go back in the day, see how that works. So we came back in the day, and what I'd done is I got this this Flipper Zero, this bit of kit that can record radio signals for the barriers. And I'd be like, it'd be quite nice if I didn't have to walk all the way to the site. 'Cause it's quite a big site, and I was feeling lazy. So I kind of just buzzed through to get the barrier to lift up. So that was fine. So drove in during the day, all fine. Turned out, because I put in a Raspberry Pi device as well during the nighttime op, I'd already got sort of a high level of privilege on the network before I'd finished for the night. So I was able to walk into the site, log on with some ready credentials. Didn't have to do any hacking. I was already logged in. So that was the day thing. We were all done by 10. At which point I can drive out. I can use my little Flipper Zero to buzz out, and I even get a jaunty wave from security as I leave.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Super. I do like that story. I mean, from a story viewpoint, Nasser, have you got a favourite story from anywhere, inside, outside the organisation? Any sort of favourite security story?
Yeah, I mean, so it's an embarrassing one, but I've learned so much from this experience. Nothing too crazy. So it happened to me. I think it's been more than a year now. You lose track of time with these stories. You try and forget them. I was in the job I am now, so cybersecurity manager, cyberman across the organization. People know who I am. Nasser's the cyber guy, phishing. He knows everything about this. Or that's the and. I think it was a Friday night. I was near a concert venue with my friend, and we came out from a restaurant because we just happened to choose the one restaurant which happens to be next to a concert hall, and we didn't realize there's a big concert going on. So it was packed. We came out, had dessert, and it's just full of people. And I was like, oh God, the train station's closed because there's too many people. Someone jumped on the track. Wherever it was, the train was closed. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to Uber home. You might as well come with me, and then I'll drop you off. I told my friend, and I booked an Uber. Like I normally do. Uber, or one of the other competitors. I don't know who it was, but one of those popular taxi apps, right? And I got it said, oh, your driver's gonna be there in 17 minutes, and I was like, okay, it makes sense. It is like rush hour. There's not enough taxis around. I'll just wait. We'll just hang out here, have a chat. 17 minutes. It'll go by fast. So we're standing there, we're talking. We didn't realize the time. It's been like 20 minutes already, and my app changes saying you're on your way home now. So when you get into the car, the app changes, say you're on your journey, and I'm like, huh? I haven't gone anywhere though. So I was just about to cancel, the journey because I thought there must be a glitch, right? And I got a phone call from the driver saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I pressed something. It started the thing, but don't worry. I'm like 5 minutes away. I'll come and pick you up. Where are you at the moment?" And I'm like, surely, I didn't question this. I was getting alarm bells, but I was deep in conversation at the same time. I was like, what are you talking about? I said, where are you? Yeah, like, I'm here. This is my location, postcode, everything. I'm there reading signs, giving him the location, the street name, everything. Not thinking he would have had this on the app anyway when I booked the ride. Why is he asking me for all these details? Didn't think of it. I was so busy giving information over. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Then he goes, yeah, I'll see you in 15 minutes. I'm like, okay. Didn't pick up on the fact that he said 5 minutes earlier, and now all of a sudden it's 15 minutes. This is me not picking up in any detail. Normally I pick up on everything that people say. I was just so engrossed in my conversation with my friend. I just didn't care what this guy was saying. I wanted to just get it done, right, and get it out of the way. And I'm like, okay, 15 minutes. Another half an hour now passes. I'm like, where's this guy? And then my app changes saying, oh, thanks for riding with whoever, and it charged me double the rate. I'm like, huh? So I've been charged more, and the app is saying I'm at home now. It gives a tick saying you're at home. Have I just been scammed here? Yeah. And then I couldn't believe it. I said, no, surely it's a glitch. Let me just phone the driver. He's probably messed something up. I called him, and of course he's blocked my number. And that's when it hit me. I was standing there, it's Friday night, and I'm like, have I just been vished? Yeah, you're not vishing. And I'm like, I think I have. And my friend nearly fell on the floor because he couldn't believe it was happening to me. He goes, I cannot believe, you just got done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't tell anyone, please. Yeah, like you better keep it secret. No one can know this. Yeah, this is. But then, and I was processing, and I got a refund and everything from the company. They were really fast to act on it. Because I said to them, my location's on, check where I am. Right through the app, I managed to verify I haven't moved because I literally hadn't moved from that spot. I was just walking, same spot. Thank God I didn't bother, walking home or anything. But they gave the money back. So financially, it was all fine. I got the refund, whatever. But the whole idea of being scammed, it really annoyed me. I was like, I'm meant to be the guy who's immune to this. What the hell happened? And I couldn't sleep that whole night because I was just replaying every word the guy said on the phone and the way he tricked me. And all the signs were there. Like, these are the signs I teach people every day how to avoid.
Yeah.
And I just fell for it. And at first I was like, I can't ever tell anyone this. This is ridiculous. Like my credibility is done in cyber. They all want to make fun of me. But then a few days passed and I had a different training session I was doing. And I was like, you know what? This might actually help people, because I started to look into how I can stop this happening. Now, you can verify your ride in a lot of these apps. You can have like a form of MFA where you give a code to the person as you sit in the car. I didn't know this before, and they can't start the journey unless you give that code.
Right.
So that prevents all of these incidents straight away. In the same way, traditional MFA prevents so many other incidents. And for me, that was like, okay, I've learned from this experience now. I can pass this knowledge on. So I started to share this with my staff members at work. And it went down really well, because what I found is, instead of making fun of me, it's hilarious as well at the same time. But from the other side, it kind of shows we're all human, and no one is immune to this at all.
Absolutely.
All it takes is you being busy doing something else. Your mind is somewhere else. And that's what really hit home to me. I was like, this is the key to, phishing and social engineering. It's catching you when you're least expecting it. And if you apply that to our staff members in a hospital, imagine you're dealing with a patient and you're getting these text messages. You're not going to sit there analyzing a text message like I would during my working day.
Yeah.
You want to get it out of the way. You want to get this problem solved, or that password reset, as fast as possible, so you can carry on with your day. And that's what I learned from it. So it's a fantastic story I share, because everyone then realizes, look, if it happened to Nasser, it can happen to us. So this is serious stuff. He's not just going on about this for the hell of it. He's lived this as well. He understands, He's just like us. And it goes back to what I was saying about making cyber human and reminding people no one's immune. Ever. If you think you're immune, you have a really false sense of security. There, you gotta remember, it's these scams, things are designed, and they're very creative the way they do this. You have to admire some of the threat actors because they have a very creative mindset, thinking outside the box. All times thinking of new exploits. Adam, I know you've seen some exploits which probably fascinate you. There's a level of admiration. Yeah, it's being used for the wrong purposes, but imagine what could be done if you had that mindset on your side, right? That feeds back into the whole thing of making cyber a bit more accessible, because we want those type of brains to work in cybersecurity. We need those people. That's exactly what the industry needs more of. So yeah, that's a story I now tell everyone. It went from being my biggest secret ever, and then now I just share it because it is what it is. And to be honest, I didn't see the signs at all. I can't believe I fell for that one. He got me.
So I just want to add to this because it's such an important message, and everything you say about it working on fundamental human behaviors, and anyone being immune, no matter if you're a hardened security expert or whether you're a complete layperson, it really can happen to everyone.
Yeah.
And I think so many organizations could also benefit from the idea of someone is going to get caught out. Someone is going to have a bad day. As you say, with your clinicians, these are super busy people working in super high pressure environments. You need to entertain the idea that someone is going to be having a bad day or isn't going to be 100% on the ball because they've got their hands full with something else. And what happens when that happens? What's the blast radius of this attack? What can someone do if they're moving from a compromised clinician to what systems do they have access to? And so on. And it's a sort of a slightly harder question, because you then get into all the technical messing about. But it's a really sort of crystalline example of how the human and the technical sort of start blending together and having to work on those problems.
And it's fascinating once you map out, like you said, different dependencies, and you start to see different data flows and what could I do if I had this. And I think we're trying to do a lot more of that across the NHS, that proactive side. So in my organization, long term, that is something we're looking to do more of, those simulations, and there's that real practical teaching as well to show people what could happen. That's what I'm working on in terms of learning material, just to show our staff members the reality. So when I did my phishing training with staff members, like in person and over Teams or Zoom, it showing them what happens when you actually click on links went down really well. Whereas before I'd show them emails and say, oh look, these are the signs, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, fair enough. But then it's only when I showed them what would have happened if I clicked on it, and in a sandbox I kind of showed them what the phishing website looks like, how it works, and they were like glued to the screen thinking, this is fascinating. It suddenly makes a lot of sense. So there's so much you can do with that, and like I said, the human and technical coming together is also one of the things that keeps a lot of us working in cyber. It's fascinating because it blends so well. It's crazy. It's hard to put words on. You can see I'm just like grinning, like a fanboy. But it's exactly what I've been thinking. It's just amazing. I love that part of cyber.
No, it's definitely good, and I think as an organisation, what we've found now is it really is. It's back in the day when I first started in security, it was how do we stop people? What can we do to prevent people getting into our organisation? And most of the extremely mature people we work with now, they're already at recovery. They're talking about, right, so when something happens, how quick can we recover? What do we do about getting back to where we need to be? Where do we want to get back to? And how long is it going to take to get back to that point, basically? So yeah. Good. Well, that's been really fascinating today, and it's been great to have you on, Nasser. We will have you back again if you will join us, because
Of course, of course,
we're
would love
going to
to.
be doing many more. We've got quite a lot of people lined up over the coming weeks, but there's certainly be space for you to join us again, sir. And obviously, the whole point of this is to get people to connect and reach out and have communication. Are you happy for us to put on the splash screen at the end your LinkedIn so people
Yeah,
can
definitely.
connect?
Of
Lovely
course, I
stuff.
love that. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I post a mixture of content, Vin, as you've seen.
I do. Yeah.
It's not just cyber. You might see some nice pictures of my matcha tea on there as well. I've kind of turned LinkedIn to yeah, it's like a social. Yeah, I'll leave it there. I think I don't want to spoil the fun, so we'll let people have a look. You'll be
Brilliant.
pleasantly surprised. You won't get
Superb.
bored. I can guarantee you that.
No, definitely not. And Adam, have you got what you'd like to add at all, mate? Or
No, I think that's everything from me. It's been awesome having you on, Nasser. It's been an absolute treat talking, particularly about the social engineering side of things, which I think we could both talk about for forever and a day.
Definitely.
And really looking forward to having you on again sometime in the future.
Yeah, I'd love
Thanks
to.
for that.
Always great talking to like minds.
yeah, and thanks to you, Adam, for joining us today, because I know you're not 100% well, mate. You need a lemon sip, and recovery shall be swift. And
Yeah, on the upswing.
Yeah, just say anybody watching, thank you very much for joining us. If you think anything that Nasser said today and touched on is going to be valuable, feel free to share that around with people in your network, especially people a bit further down the curve who are trying to move up. Just to stress, as an organisation, we don't sell. We don't sell things. We're not a sales company, but we do offer services. And all I would say is that if anything that's been touched on today sounds interesting, specifically if you're looking at the way we operate when it comes to testing and how we do it differently, feel free to reach out if you want a conversation. But we don't sell, so I'll leave that there. But yeah, it's been really good. Thank you for being our first ever guest, Nasser, and look forward to seeing you on future casts, sir. Goodbye from Security Talks, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks.